Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and what if Jane Foster had found the hammer of Thor? This is What If, issue number 7. This is a pretty damn old comic book. The cover date is August of 1978, but the release date is May 23rd of 1978. Months always go in advance when the comic releases. Anyway, this is a good comic book. I'm not going to complain about this comic book. The writer is Dan Glut. The penciler is Rick Hoberg, and the inker is Dave Hunt. Carl Gafford on colors, and Carol Lay doing the letters. Roy Thomas with Jim Shooter doing the editing. And the cover, John Buscema and Gaspar Saladino. So nice, Saladino. Should be Saladino. I can't read it. It's too small for me. The What If comic books were fantastic. This right here, this is a 44-year-old comic book, for crying out loud, you know what I'm saying? Wow. This goes way freaking back. The current date is the 20th of April, 2022. And I'm doing this because 2 days ago, Chris Hemsworth put out the video, the short, the minute and a half or so short teaser trailer for Thor Love and Thunder. And my Facebook group went a little bit crazy. The Comic Book University Facebook group, you could find it in the description box below, along with the Discord channel and all sorts of other cool social media stuff where you could talk to a whole bunch of us. And anyway, this was good. The original idea for Jane Foster becoming Thor, for anybody becoming Thor, was actually here back in 1978. What if Jane Foster had found the hammer of Thor? So we're going to move on with this comic book. We have the initial page, which is always for these What If comic books, the Watcher telling you who he is and what he does and what he found in this new universe. You know, what if something else? You know, I've seen that because I see the multiverse, right? Since the What If television series came out on Disney Plus, more people know who the Watcher is, and they know what the universe is all about. So hey, it makes my job easier. And then we get 2 full pages and basically 3 of the setup for this comic book. That's fantastic. They didn't do the preamble back in the day. They didn't do the foreword where they say, oh, the writer is this and da-da-da-da-da, and this is the character we're talking about. This is what's happened recently. This is where we're going from here, and here's the comic book. They didn't do that back in the day. One of the good upgrades from back in the day was that you could just read that forward if you needed to, if you were jumping on a new comic book, or ignore it if you've been reading the comic book since the series started, whatever, you know, and just start reading the comic book. The forward is there or not there if you choose. Back in the day, a lot of us used to just skip through this stuff. We used to see this stuff and skim it really quick to see, you know, scan for certain words, you know, is something new happened? No? Okay, then just go on, right? But it is what it is. Anyway, 3 pages or so. And then we go into what actually happens in the comic book. Now, to get into there, let me first talk to you about, oh my God, Tales to Astonish? No. Journey into Mystery. Hi. That's the comic book. Marvel had a bunch of anthology books back in the day. All right. They had Tales to Astonish, which was whatever. And then they had Tales of Suspense. They had Astonishing Tales, I think it was called. And then they also had Journey into Mystery. These 4 main... Amazing Adult Fantasy was one also, but that only went up to 15 issues. The 15th issue was just called Amazing Fantasy instead of Amazing Adult Fantasy, and that was the first appearance of Spider-Man. But Marvel mostly had these anthology books that would have up to 4 different stories in there, all short stories, you know, written and drawn. Ditko and Kirby were all over these, along with Lee and Lieberwitz, Stan Lee's younger brother, right? A whole bunch of different people. They would work on these books, and they would just keep on pumping out these little short story anthologies. That's the thing that kept Marvel afloat back in the day before they were actually Marvel. Later on, they started making a couple extra characters, like this Hank Pym guy would show up, Henry Pym, and he would, he had the shrinking thing, and then later on, like, we can make him into a superhero. Hey, so that sort of thing would happen. In the Journey into Mystery, they suddenly came up with this idea of, hey, let's use the Norse god of thunder. Now, Tales to Astonish, Journey into Mystery issue number 83 is not the first appearance of Thor. It's the first modern appearance of Thor in the Marvel comic books, or Timely or Atlas comic books, the whole line of what Marvel used to be and is currently. The first appearance was actually in, I forget which issue, 6, 8, something like that, of Venus. I think the comic book was called Venus. It might have been some adjective, like the amazing Venus or whatever. Anyway, Venus, goddess of love, right? It was one of those romance type comic books, but featuring a goddess. And Thor and Loki and a bunch of other Norse gods appeared there also. But it's a very different version of Thor, but it's still Marvel, so it's technically still Thor, right? But first modern appearance of Thor, which actually counts, issue number 83. 84 is the first appearance of Jane Foster. 85 is the first appearance of Loki. And that's the first time that Loki ever, or that anybody ever mentions that the hammer, Mjolnir, is made out of Uru. That's the first time Uru was ever mentioned in the comic book. So there you go, right? Get your hands on those comic books, baby. So the way that it originally happened was Donald Blake, he's a lame physician. He's actually Thor. This has been retconned much later on. And this comic book, it's one of those older comic books. Roy Thomas, I told you, was one of the main guys in here, along with Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter was actually hired in this comic book to do the continuity checks. They wanted to check for continuity in here. So you hired some guy who's like, hey, I'm writing all the story. Could you just check, double check me, make sure that all my continuity is right? We don't want to piss off the fans. And they also cared about the comic books back in the day. Go figure. So they they had him go through and whatever. You'll see that later on. There are only two differences in this comic book, in this universe, from the regular Earth 616 universe. For those who don't know, really quick, when you read comic books, the basic comic book that you're reading in Marvel is in the Earth 616 universe. A little lisp there. What do you call it? They might have different dimensions here and there, but when we talk about regular standard Marvel, we're talking Earth 616. The Ultimate Universe, that's designation 1610. That's not Earth 616. That's a different universe, right? They cross over. Marvel Zombies, I think, is Earth 666. Go figure. There's a whole bunch of different universes that will cross over, but the main Marvel continuity universe that we read today is Earth 616. It has nothing to do with the movie universe, the TV universe, the cartoon universe, nothing. It's an entity on its own. That's important to understand. The first time that Jane Foster was ever Thor in the Earth 616 was not in this issue. It was in Jason Aaron's run. And clearly, he took inspiration from this. So, in the original Journey into Mystery, Dr. Donald Blake, he's Thor. He has a mortal body with a crippled leg. He has a lame leg. He has a bum leg, right? And he's sent to Earth with full amnesia. He has no idea who he is. I know there are other different continuities now. There's, completely out of continuity. Lots of different people have said, oh, no, it's actually this, and no, this is actually the thing. No, it's a new person. Like, I think Donnie Cates and other people have said, no, it's a completely different personality that was put in with him, and he put him in his body, and he was created by Odin. But no, the original way that it was done was that it's Thor, but put into a mortal body, right? His body was made mortal and lame from birth and total amnesia. So he thinks his name is Dr. Donald Blake. That's actually what it is. Later on, and that's Jack Kirby and Stan Lee who did that. So all of the entire run of this issue, the time span that it covers, is during the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee days of writing and drawing, irrespective. So just keep that in mind. Dr. Blake decides, hey, I'm going to go to Norway. I'm going to take a little sabbatical from being a doctor. I'm going to go off. I'm going to, just do my own thing and kind of relax a little bit. He goes to Norway. He's walking around and all of a sudden aliens show up. the Air Force or whatever is fighting the aliens in the sky, but this one particular spaceship lands right here, and the stone men from Saturn get out. One of these stone men would, through retcon later on, be in the Planet Hulk series, be Korg, one of his retinue. What the heck were they called? Can't remember what his retinue was called, but anyway, I'll remember it later. What happens? He the Warbound. There we go. See, later. So he but he's not called Korg in here. Just anyway, some of them get come off and they start chasing him. Donald Blake, even though he's lame, is still able to get away from them. They don't explain it in Tales of Astonish. In this comic book, they do. They were able to get away because, oh look, freaking, I'm lame, but they're made of stone. They're very slow. So that's cool. Little things like that. But Donald Blake runs away, and he accidentally drops his cane, and he slides down this little ravine to get it, but he's trapped down there. There's a cave opening. He goes in there to hide, but he's trying to get out on the other side because he can't get out this way, right? He's lame, got a bum leg, dude. He's trying to find the way out, and there's this big boulder, and he's like, maybe I can get out through that way, but, what's this over here? Oh, a secret door opens up, and on this little stone dais, like this little stone altar, there's just this gnarled piece of Norwegian wood, and he uses it as a walking staff. He goes over and he starts trying to use it as a pry to try and move the stone. Stone's freaking huge. It's not going to happen. He gets pissed, and he smacks the stone with the thing, and that one tap turns him into Thor, right? And the books were put into chapters there, so that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is him learning how to use his powers. Chapter 3 is him kicking everybody's ass, and sending them flying, right? That was the origin of Thor. In this comic book, 2 differences from that main continuity. One, right away, he takes Jane Foster with him. Jane Foster is his nurse. Now, I love these old, I know some people might find it hokey or whatever, but it's no different than a soap opera. And soap operas have been in existence since forever, and they're still strong today, and people still follow them, and actors change, and they still follow them, and just, you can't deny saying something that comes out 5 times a week and people are in love with them, right? So they had that soap opera-esque mentality. They were just coming out of the whole love comic books, right? There was the romance comic books, the cowboy comic books, and the sci-fi comic books. Those were the things that sold back in the day. And this is now the beginning, the Marvel age of superheroes, a very different turn from Marvel. They still had those elements of hokey romance stuff in it. So Dr. Donald Blake is madly in love with Jane Foster, but he's got a bum leg. He's a brilliant surgeon and all this stuff. He's a good-looking guy, but he's still very skinny. He's not very muscular, and he's got a lame leg. And he knows there's no way she could fall in love with me. Jane Foster, on the other hand, does love him, and she wishes that he had, 1, the gumption to say something, 2, she wishes that she had the gumption to say something. So that right there, that's like a progressive sort of thing. It's not the idea of, you're a bum because you won't ask me out, mister. No, she's also thinking to herself, I should have the courage to say something to him also. I wish that he had the courage, but I should have the courage also. There's a sense of equality, and I love that. I love that. For a 1978 comic book, come on. Right? That's 3 years after I was born, for crying out loud. So they push this, and she's his nurse. Oh, one of the things he's afraid to say also about I love you, is that he's afraid that she'll quit, because it'll make it too awkward for them to work with each other. So she'll quit or seek a transfer someplace else. And he just enjoys the idea of being around. Very introvert, right? Very introverted type romance there. Very realistic as far as I'm concerned. Sounds like all of our first crushes, right? So very relatable to kids, boys and girls. So she goes with him. They're on sabbatical. Same thing happens. The aliens land. They try to run. He drops his cane. But instead of him going down to chase after it, she does. She says, wait here. She goes down there, but she can't find it, for one thing. And then she can't get back up. And she's like, just hold on. I'm going to find a way out over here. Goes, finds a secret passage, grabs the gnarled wood, tries to pry open, doesn't work, pissed off, smacks it. She becomes empowered by the hammer. And here's something that's interesting. She doesn't call herself Thor. Right? She gains the power of Thor, but she's not Thor. There's going to be a bunch of people who are upset in the Facebook group and all that good stuff. It is what it is, all right? But she calls herself Thordis. She studied Norwegian history, whatever, in school, and there was this one famous woman named Thordis. Thordis. You know, like suck dis? Yeah, Thordis. Anyway, Thordis, Thordis. She takes that name and she goes off and she beats up all the things. They don't bother doing the power-up segment. She learns how to use her powers and she goes out and she kicks butt and takes names. And she's able to rescue Donald Blake. just like in the original comic books, Donald Blake becomes Thor, and now he wants to be with Jane Foster, but he's off trying to save the world, and he's got and now it's more awkward because he's got to explain how he's away all the time, how he just disappears, Throats are annoying, right? How he's always disappearing, and, eventually they start growing apart more, and he can't just admit to her, hey, I'm actually Thor and whatever. She's going to like Thor. She's not going to like me, for who I grew up to be and everything like that. So whatever, it is what it is. Here, the exact same thing happens, but in reverse, clearly. He's in love with her. She's in love with him. She's thinking, I should just tell him. But it's not going to happen because she's too busy off saving the world. Something else that happens, just like in the comic books, 2 issues later, so issue 85 of Journey into Mystery, Loki was trapped in a tree over all these millennia, or all these years, I guess, 20 years, whatever. He finally masters how to use the tree. Heimdall comes walking by, and he makes the leaf go in this tree, sheds a tear. Oh, a tear for the plight of Loki. So he's able to escape, and he goes down, he traces the hammer, and he goes after Thor. Turns out it's not Thor, it's Thordis, but he still wants the hammer. Here's something that's interesting. In the original confrontation, when that happened in Journey into Mystery, Thor refuses to give the hammer over to him because, no, you can't. Loki tries to hypnotize him. And he gets hypnotized, but in hypnosis, you can't make somebody do something that they wouldn't normally do. Thor would never hand over that hammer, so he refuses to. So instead he makes an illusion of Thor. And Thor hands the hammer over to the illusion of Thor. It's just an illusion. Can't carry the hammer, so it falls on the ground. And Loki doesn't know what he's going to do with it. But it's the idea that, oh, okay, cool. Go over there and free those animals so you cause a big distraction to all these people here. In the meantime, these people start trying to lift the hammer. And Thor, being away from the hammer for more than 60 seconds, he turns back into Donald Blake. That's how he breaks the curse, because he's got amnesia. Donald Blake is amnesiatic from Thor, so he does. So he's not Thor, so to speak, right? So this spell is initially broken because of that, and then he goes back, he picks up the hammer, and he proceeds to beat up Loki and send him back to Asgard. Something very similar happens here, with one exception. She breaks the spell. She doesn't turn back to Jane Foster to break the spell, because she would still be Jane Foster, so that wouldn't really work, right? No, she just overcomes it. Loki makes says, give me the hammer. She says no. He makes an illusion of Thor and says, give it back to its rightful owner. And she's like, wait, no, I found the hammer. Female empowerment, maybe? I don't know. But this was a very Wonder Woman-esque incident for me, and I loved it. I loved it. She's like, no. And that's how she breaks the spell. The spell wasn't broken because she turned. No, she broke the spell. Badass. Badass. Jason Aaron has said some bad things about, it was very sexist back in the day. Show me. Show me. They all do their thing. When she sends Loki back, though, in this particular time, it's not a case where Odin says, my favorite son Thor is back, and my least favorite son, Loki, is back also. You're going to jail, blah, 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 blah. Right? No, instead, it's not Thor who sends him back, it's Thordis. So he says, I want an audience with Odin. And he's like, all right, well, here you go. We bring him up, and Odin's like, oh, who's this person? Who's this person down there with my son's hammer? Summons him up, right? Thor was sent down there to learn a lesson in abject humility. He had not fully found his way back yet, and Odin wasn't about to just hand it back to him. He had to prove himself worthy. So, I'm going to get into this a little bit more later. But he brings her up, and right away, Volstagg, Hogan the Grim is always cool, right? But Volstagg is like, you should come with me and be married with me because I'm awesome. And she's like, ew. And Fangirl's like, forget about that jovial buffoon. Come with me and we'll go find a quiet place together. How you doing? She judo flips him. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's very stand up for herself in this show. There's that misogynistic, chauvinistic thing, and she's not about that. She's like, get out of here. I'm not going to be smitten by you knockoff of Errol Flynn. Get out of here. So Odin goes and treats her bad also, right? Because you're not Thor. She's like, no, I'm Thordis. What's up? And he sends her back home. She's like, good. Banished forever from Asgard? Ooh. I don't want to be here anyway. Asgard. Guard your own ass. So, hey, now there's no guardian of Asgard for the Odin sleep. And that's what eventually happens. Because she's down there kicking butt on Earth, but eventually Odin has to go into the Odin sleep. That's when Loki's going to turn around and be like, ba-ba, and take over, right? Keep Odin in the Odin sleep forever. Well, Mangog starts returning once he goes into the Odin sleep. This is the original idea of Ragnarok and whatnot in the Marvel Comics. So, yeah, all this stuff starts happening, and Thor winds up eventually getting summoned back to try and help. While Thordis gets summoned back to try and help. When Thordis was on Asgard originally, though, Sif was there. Now, Sif, she's got this idea that when I come of age and Thor has learned humility and comes back to Asgard, I will be wed to him because we loved each other and we were meant to be. But she sees this Thordis and she's like, where's my Thor? So there's this spell where no one's allowed to tell Don Blake that he's actually Thor. Odin put that spell on there and none can break. Super powerful magic. Kicked Thanos' ass. Anyway, Galactus' ass too. How you doing? Kind of. Anyway. He, what happens? Sif decides, I need to take matters into my own hands, and she goes down. And this is a very important thing. This is very, very important. Genghis Khan used to say, women are women, but it takes a village to raise a man. It takes a lifetime to make a man, right? There's a boy, but to become a man. And obviously, Genghis Khan, Temujin, he comes from a much rougher time where you don't have time for equal rights. You can't afford to have, wokeism and whatever the hell else is in the world, right? Like, it's only very recently that we have the luxury of things like that. We should absolutely have civil rights. We should absolutely have equality. We should absolutely have things like that. But at the same time, it's because we've made the world civilized, for the most part, civilized. So many people are civilized. Yes, jackass. Compared to how it was just, not too damn long ago, World War II and before that, right? There's still parts of the world that aren't civilized the right way. You don't want to be a woman going on a train by yourself or even with a guy. You know what I'm saying? By yourself. There are parts of the world that are like that. It's life. Freaking deal with it and recognize how good we have it in America, in Canada, in the West, and in certain other parts of the world. It is what it is. You hate me for telling the truth. Let's go. Yeah. So it takes a lot to make a man. And unfortunately nowadays, we don't really have too many coming of age rituals, right? Jews still have bar mitzvahs, and those are great because, at the risk of sounding racist, Jews have it together. Jewish people have it together. You know what I'm saying? All of them? No. Most of them, it seems so. They really have it together because they have a bar mitzvah. There's a time when you know this is the moment that you're going to become a man. And a whole bunch of people give you money. There's a big celebration. And somebody says to you, you are a man now. You are worthy of my respect, right? Mothers have unconditional love. Boys and girls need that. Fathers have conditional love. A father's love is conditional. Meet my expectations, and boom. It can get toxic. It can be, if you never reach your father's expectations because they're too lofty or whatever, there's going to be growing resentment there. I'm saying in a perfect world, right? Father knows, first off, father's there. And two, a father knows how to make sure that, you sparingly give your respect. I don't just go around telling my sons you're the best and you can do anything you want, blah, 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 blah. I tell them you can earn a whole lot in the world, maybe anything. Maybe you can become president. Maybe you can do whatever you want. Who knows? Who cares? You want it? Go for it. Specialize in it. Be the best in it. Make sure it's something you love, right? Plus, they're in the martial arts. They get belts. They get rank. Every time they accomplish something after a certain period of time, suddenly there's a promotion there. It feels good. It feels good. When somebody comes up to me, like in front of them, someone to me says, your kids are great. Wow, they are so good at this stuff. My two little boys, they learn this. They hear this stuff. They feel good. Hopefully they don't get a big head. That's where the conditionality of a father comes in. You don't get to have a big head. I'll chop you down as quick as I'll build you up. You know what I'm saying? Don't get cocky, kid. Don't get cocky. Han Solo must not have had a father in his life. But that's really important. Why am I saying all of this stuff, right? Oh, and a rite of passage. Like I had the martial arts. I also had a spirit quest. I had a vision quest that I got to go on. So the spirit journey, right? 3 days alone, quite literally wearing a loincloth. I'm flapping to the breeze, baby, right? 3 days alone in the woods with a little bag of trail mix, which I was encouraged. Do not eat it. Just be out there. Be alone. Find your spirit guide, And when I came back, I'm a man. In the Native American traditions, I am now a man. I was 21 when I did that, but still. I think I was 19. I think I was 19 when I did that. Anyway, whatever, and I plan on doing that with both of my sons. And I told them, one of these days I'm going to leave you guys in the woods by yourselves. You won't know when it's happened, but every time we go camping, you pay attention to what we're doing. Otherwise, you might not make it back. And they're a little bit scared. But when they come back, they will know that they've earned it. Why do I say all this stuff? Sif knows what it takes to make a man in this. More importantly, the writer and the editors know what it takes to make a man in this. She goes down, and even though she's a goddess and she's ridiculously powerful and she's a badass and she can kick Loki's ass, she disguises herself as a frail woman who's in the middle of who's offshore and she's drowning, right? Just as Donald Blake comes limping by. And he sees this, and right away in his mind, because he's a good person, he's a hero, he just has to remember he is. Even with his bum leg, he throws everything down, he jumps out there, and he swims out there and tries to get to her. Once he gets close, she turns back into Sif, and it's like, I didn't need your help, bitch. You know what I'm saying? But you are a hero. You are and she can't say you're my Thor, but you are special. Right? And he feels special. And then later on, when they're walking, and this parallels events of, I think, Thor number 153, I think they said. They're both, Donald Blake and Sif are walking down the street, and people are looking on. And he's like, oh, they're all looking at you because you're a goddess. And she's like, maybe they're looking at you because they know you. And they're not used to seeing you. Oh, she heals his leg. That's one thing she is able to do. Through her touch, she heals his bum leg so he can walk regular now. So she's like, they know you as the skinny little doctor who goes hobbling down whatever. Now they see you as a strong man, almost a god yourself. He has that encouragement. Suddenly, he can actually feel like a champion. He can feel like a man, right? This is how you get the there's not enough men who are mature in the world. Yeah, a lot more men need fathers in their lives or some kind of a positive role model who will give them a rite of passage. Went a little bit social on you, right? Years of psychology and sociology. That'll do it for you. Anyway, so he there's the thing with Thor or with Loki. He winds up getting powered by Carnilla. They don't explain that in this comic book too much, but there are all the asterisks with the hey, go read these comic books to understand what's going on, which is great. Because that sells more comic books. That sells more trade paperbacks. Hey, now all of a sudden, we're into money, right? That's what good editors do. That's what good people do in the comic book industry. You sell more comic books. Always be hustling, baby. What have you. Sif isn't able to defeat Loki, who is now empowered by the Norn Stones and by the Norn Queen, Carnilla. What do you call it? Anyway, he can't turn back into Thor because Jane Foster has the thing. Oh, one of the things that I kind of liked, she doesn't need a cane, so she doesn't use the stick as a cane. She actually shaves off some of it and turns it into a hairbrush that she can just keep on her person all the time because women always have hairbrushes on them, right? Is that sexist? I mean, is that the thing that Jason Aaron was talking about? I know what he was talking about, but anyway. So all this stuff happens, and boom, they're able to defeat Loki, defeat Mangog. All these things happen. Odin wakes up from his sleep because Thor just makes a storm so powerful it wakes Odin up out of the Odin sleep. He wakes up, he finishes everything, and he says, I need to start making things whole again. Jane Foster, sorry, Thordis, I have to take that hammer from you because it doesn't belong to you. You're worthy of it, but it doesn't belong to you. And he says, don't worry, I'm not done with you yet. He gives the hammer to Thor now. He says, you've proven yourself worthy. Because Sif, provided the spirit journey, so to speak, so that he could prove himself. So now he's worthy. And he becomes Thor. He goes off and he does his Thor thing. And he's forever in love with Sif because they were forever in love. He'd already grown mostly out of love with Jane because she'd been gone all the time and without excuse. Figured she's off dating somebody else. Who knows? Who cares? Jane, however, Odin makes into an immortal. Right? All this stuff, Jason Aaron got all of this stuff from this one comic book, my peeps. Did he do it better? Well, he did it over a long period of time as opposed to one what-if comic book that's not even in modern continuity. So it is what it is. Anyway, you like it, you don't, you don't. I liked it up until she died and then came right back in the same issue. That's when I'm like, all right, you just jumped the shark. Not interested anymore. But anyway, he makes her into an immortal and then marries her. At first she's like, wait, what? And he's like, listen, that's the second thing that's different in the world, in this world. I told you in the beginning of this issue, there were two differences from this universe to the Earth 616 universe. The first was that Jane went with Donald Blake to Norway on sabbatical. The second is that Odin is single in this. He's not with anybody. He's not with a Freya, So he says, I think that over time you could grow to love me. So they start talking. They just show it as, like one or two scenes in the comic book, but you figure he courted her, he wooed her, and they say it in there. Many of the aspects, all of the aspects, whatever, that she loved about Donald Blake, who is not Donald Blake anymore, mind you, she actually found in Odin also. And yeah, sure, he looks like an old man, but he's also immortal, so come on, really? Anyway, hey, if a girl could fall in love with a 100-year-old vampire who looks like freaking the Batman, god damn it. Don't complain to me about freaking Odin, all right, and Jane Foster. So anyway, she does fall in love with him, and she winds up becoming the Queen of the Gods. I'd say that's pretty cool. since it was done so quick, maybe Jason Aaron's like, well, that's sexist that she just has to be with somebody. People marry for power all the time. And they said that they actually fell in love. So whatever, it is what it is. Look, you like it, you don't like it, it is what it is. But this is where all those ideas came from. This is the original idea. It's also the idea that they didn't call her Thor. She called herself Thordis. All right? So the name is still there, but it's also not. I don't like the idea that you take somebody's title. You know, more than one person is Captain America at the same time. More than one person is Wolverine at the same time. Personally, I'm not a fan of stuff like that. I'm really not. It's confusing. It's annoying, right? So, but taking someone's actual birth name, he was Thor long before he was worthy of the hammer, right? He was called Thor. And like, no, Jane, you take my name. What is this? What is this? You know? You don't want to be Thordis. Be something else. Be Thordis until you reveal that you're actually Jane Foster. Don't know, don't care. I don't know, I don't care. But not Thor. Like, it's just goofy. It's doofy. There were a lot of things that were kind of goofy and doofy, and it is what it is. You know? Come up with something new. All right? I don't need to have 40 different Spider-Mans. Brooklyn Spider-Man, Queen Spider-Man. Can we just have one Spider-Man? Maybe it's just me, you know? Anyway, I thought that this was a really good comic book. Guys, the What If comic books were absolutely fantastic. Also, if you choose to go out and get this comic book, you know it's probably going to be expensive. So let me see if I can just skip to this last page and I'll actually tell you. They came up with a whole bunch of ideas before in What If number 7, the letters page is called Why Not. In What If number 7, we printed several dozen alternate universe ideas which had been suggested by our wide-eyed readers. Excuse me. While the letters page and issue were still being printed, Ye editor took a liking to a couple of them and started writers and artists working on them, and so here they are. And it just gives a bunch, and I believe every single one of these in one form or another actually became future What If stories. Like, what if Gwen Stacy hadn't died? What if Rick Jones had become the Hulk? What if several superheroes had formed the Avengers instead of Thor and company, right? All sorts of different ones like that. What if Shang-Chi and his father were the best of buddies, right? They actually did. What if Shang-Chi was on... what the heck was his name that was apparently racist and I didn't know? That nobody knew it was racist, because why would it be racist? Anyway, whatever the freaking guy's name was. What if Conan defeated Red Sonja in combat? Well, that should be pretty easy. He gets to have sex with her. Duh, everybody knows that. Anyway, somebody's going to get upset at that because they don't know the legacy of Red Sonja. She refuses to sleep with anybody unless they can beat her in combat, and nobody can beat her in combat. So, anyway, it's not like, he beats her up and then takes her. No, rape is completely out of the mindset of Conan. Robert E. Howard established that from the beginning. He would never do something so base and vile. That's disgusting. He's a man, not some animal. So, anyway, to all those people want to cancel me for something. Anyway, so there's a whole bunch of them here. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. I believe every single one of these in one way or another actually became What If comic books. I may go over a couple more What If comic books. Again, the only reason why I did this one is because there was a big hubbub on the Facebook group. Go and check that out down there. Maybe you can join in on the hubbub. But seriously, guys, be respectful. All right? We're all human beings. We all come from different backgrounds. We all got different ideas and whatnot. And nobody's trying to be a jerk. If you read something that looks like they're trying to be a jerk, imagine reading it with somebody having a very polite and kind smile on their face instead, right? And if somebody is being a jerk, there are plenty of mods who will tell that person, dude, don't act like that, Anyway, and I've seen plenty of people who have gotten upset and said something rude. Somebody else goes and just says, hey, maybe you feel that way, whatever, but here's the deal, blah, blah, blah. And the other person realized they were a jerk and they're cool afterwards. They don't need to be told you were being a jerk, right? It's not about policing people. Police yourself. Be decent. We're all comic book fans on there, and just go on. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Hope you enjoyed this. Probably do a couple more what ifs later. I'll talk to you later. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.